With spring practice behind us and the spring transfer portal closed, we know what this roster is going to look like in 2025. And now that we kind of know that, now I think we're starting to take this to the next level. Okay, we know what the roster is going to look like. We know what the schedule is going to look like. And now people, I think, are starting to look forward towards expectations. What can we expect from this Oregon team in 2025? And what can be deemed as a successful 2025 is what I'm going to try to tackle here in this segment. Now, I do have something at the end of the segment that I believe is success and what I deem as success. What do you think is success? Certainly leave that in the comments below, because I'm sure a lot of people have a lot of different ways to look at success. Now, I think when you take a look at what a successful 2025 can do, you gotta look back at 2024. Now, the Rose Bowl is a giant black eye. New Year's Day, 41-21, down 34-0. Like, we all know the story. We don't want to talk about it very often, but there's no doubt that's what a lot of people, I think, are drawn to when they really think about the 2024 season. It was the last thing. It's recency bias, right? But make no mistake about it. The 2024 season was a very successful season for Duck football. Going 13-0 to start this thing off in the year 2024, the calendar year 2024. Beating Ohio State during the regular season at Autzen was a fantastic moment in the history of Oregon football, maybe. Beating Penn State in Indianapolis to win the Big Ten championship. Dominating some of these teams the way they dominated them. I think one thing that really flies under the radar from 2024 is just the way they thrashed Illinois. Illinois was a good team. This ended up being a 10-win football team. And the way Illinois the way Oregon, I should say, said to Illinois, says, yeah, this one's over midway through the second quarter, I think in hindsight is very impressive. But 2024 was a very successful season. So yeah, I think you need to look at that year to really set the bar for 2025, because you have to look at what was successful in 2024 and you have to determine, can this team have a higher ceiling in 25 than what the team accomplished in 2024. And I think there's certainly different levels to success. So maybe did 2024 achieve the high-end level of success? Maybe 2025 doesn't accomplish quite what they did, but they can still be successful, maybe on a little bit of a lower end. Let's try to break this thing down a little bit more, why don't we? Now, the big differences, here's kind of how I break down these two teams. 2024 had experience. You had the most experienced quarterback in college football history, for God's sakes, in Dillon Gabriel. He'd seen a lot of football. You had a guy like Josh Connerly at tackle. You had Jordan James that had been in the program for years. You had Terrence Ferguson that had been in the program for years. You had Tez Johnson, that had been in the program. Now that was his second season. Jabbar Muhammad played a lot of football. Jordan Birch played a lot of football. Jeffrey Bassa played a lot of football. Like, you look around at this Oregon roster this season, and I think having that experience, having those seasons under their belt, helped this team progress the way they did through the regular season. You don't really have that. For the first time in the Dan Lanning era, you have a quarterback that is not ultra experienced. Bo Nix had 3 years of experience under his belt before he transferred in. Dillon Gabriel had a whole bunch of experience, right? Those were the two most experienced quarterbacks during their time over there at Oregon. Of Dillon Gabriel breaking the Bo Nix record of most snaps, games, starts, whatever it was. I can't exactly remember what that record ended up being. But I think the difference with this year's team is you have the youth, you have the inexperience. Dante Moore is just one piece of it. The secondary is another piece of it. Even the wide receiver position, bringing in somebody like a Decorian Moore, and then whoever the wide receiver 3 is going to be. The offensive line, okay, you have guys that I think have maybe played in other spots, but they have inexperience as far as their Oregon experience. How are they going to gel together? I think there's a lot more questions at this point in time. But to be honest with you, I think there's more talent. I think there can be more talent. I think, like, and I've said this before, that there could be a higher ceiling with some of this talent at Oregon because this young talent needs to get games under their belt. They need to get experience. So at the end of the season, I think that this team can certainly be finishing strong. I think this schedule shapes up for, at the very least, a 10-win season. And make no mistake about it, when you're setting the floor, I think when you're setting the minimum for this team, 10 wins, and when you talk about being successful, 10 wins and a playoff appearance is the floor of success for this Oregon Ducks football team. I think one thing that I think people are going to have into the back of their minds is, well, Dan has had incremental growth every single season. From 10 wins to 12 wins to 13 wins to not being able to win against your rivals to being able to win against your rivals. So where does the incremental growth really come in to provide a successful 2025 for this Ducks team this year? I think for me, it's the postseason, because I don't think this team's going to go 13-0 again. I just don't. And I think there's a sick, twisted part of me down in the inside that's kind of saying this Oregon team could maybe benefit from being on the short end of the stick in one of these games and learning from that and developing from that and working toward, like, look at Ohio State, how they were motivated at the end of the season after that loss to the Michigan Wolverines. And that certainly turned into a pretty damn successful season for the Ohio State Buckeyes. I think Dan's incremental growth maybe shows the signs of what success could be. For me, I think it's pretty clear. If you want to continue to kind of take steps up on that ladder, I think a successful season would be a playoff win of some kind. Whether it's in the first round of the playoffs you win and then you lose in the quarterfinals again, I think that could still be a successful season. Even though you're kind of sitting in the same spot as you did last season, I think that could still be considered a successful season. If you get a first round bye and you get to the quarterfinals and you win a playoff game there and you get to the semifinals, which is one round further than you did last year, I certainly deem that as a successful season. I think that this is a team that's pushing towards 2026. I really believe that. I think that this is the year to kind of set the stage for a true national championship type of football team to return a lot of guys in 2026. The youth, the inexperience, there's a lot of questions. When you see this much inexperience on a team, you're asking a lot for everything to click. And I think what we've seen in previous years, everything needs to click, especially at the right time. I'm just not sure. Oregon, they could be that type of team, but I'm too unsure right now if that's that type of football team. This is a team that needs to win 10 games. I think this is a team that needs to win that playoff game to kind of take that next step, to prove that they can take that next step as a program, to really set the stage for what could be the ultimate successful season in 2026 for this Oregon Ducks football program.